Welcome back to America's Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull. This segment is brought to you by CommercialAgentSuccess.com. Check it out. It's the ultimate training for commercial real estate brokers, CommercialAgentSuccess.com. Well, today we're talking about the office sector, the office market. We're talking about strategies for landlords. We're talking about strategies for tenants. Please welcome my next guest. It's Haril Pandya. He's principal with CBT Architects, and he's joining us on Skype. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Well, I appreciate it. And you guys do architectural work all over the world. And we've talked to you before about some of the strategies for office tenants and landlords. And one of the things that seems really interesting, I think, to a lot of our listeners and viewers is kind of the evolved space we see, the evolved buildings today. What do you guys see from your end and the way things are trending when it comes to office building amenities and when tenants are building out their space, their process today? It seems like, the younger people want something new. That's helped us, but, a lot of open space. And then it seems like now some of it's getting pushed back the other way. Where are we? What is going on?
Yeah, that pendulum's going to keep swinging as long as we have an influx of different generations coming into the workforce. That pendulum's going to keep moving back and forth. And we've been really blessed in one way because millennials have come in and really changed the way we look at everything. So, all of a sudden we have, beer and pool tables and fitness centers and cafes. And it's been a huge explosion as far as building amenities go. And building owners, are taking it very seriously because that's what attracts tenants and pays good rent and makes it competitive. So we're seeing a lot of the same from building to building, but I think tenants are starting to look for slightly different things because now it's not if you have a gym, is it do you have the best gym or do you have something else that the gym offers? Their wellness classes, etc. So it's getting beyond just sort of the check the box, if you will.
Yeah. And if we are a landlord and we have an office building and we're trying to say, all right, well, we know we need a fitness center and we know we need these things. How do we make it different? How do we make the experience a little more inviting to attract and retain the right tenants?
And it's a great question. You have to keep in mind that you are attracting not only the generation for which you've designed it for. You also have us Gen Xers. You have some baby boomers left, and you have in about 10 years you're going to have a lot of Gen Z coming, and not too far in the future, Gen Alpha, who is the children of millennials. So they're all coming, and so we want to try to be relevant. We want to make sure that the dollars that we're investing today for building owners and for tenants, that they're going a long way. So it becomes, like you said, a lot about the experience and sort of what the memory of that space is and what it really does as far as creating a sense of well-being, to the employee.
Yeah, and I think in terms of how important wellness is today, and if if you're a listener or viewer of the show, you probably understand how important I think wellness and the wellness certification and the wellness of our space is to the tenant productivity and the retention and recruiting. But you're mentioning something a little different here. Not wellness, but well-being. What are you talking about?
Well, so I think we're all getting a lot more conscious. We've gone beyond kale. We're actually on to avocado toast now, which is the whole millennial thing. And to get beyond that, actually, when you're talking wellness, you're saying, okay, the air quality of the building, or the light quality of the building, or the temperature, or do you have fitness, and do you have this sort of thing. When you get to well-being, that's more about your esteem and self-actualization of the space. So are you in a place that supports you as a human being? A lot of people are now focused on mission-driven, social equity, diversity. They want to make sure the environment's right, social justice, and are the spaces and designs accommodating all these things? Do you feel like you're actually a part of something and belonging to something? So future generations are very focused on that sort of thing. And they're much more interested in the fact, or less interested rather, if they have a gym or not. It's what else are they a part of? What else can they be, dialed into? What else is in line with what their mission is on a personal level? So
Yeah.
you're hitting a lot of generations at once, but at the same time, you have to make sure that now you're talking about humanity and not just if you're healthy or not, or gym or not, or cafe or not.
Yeah. What about the open space versus, offices and separate space? It seems like there was a really push to open space, and then some tenants are kind of coming back to, well, maybe they do need some more private space, and it looks like a lot of people kind of want the best of both worlds. What are you seeing today, and what are people designing for the future in that regard?
Well, hang on to your bell-bottom jeans, Michael, from high school. At some point, it's all coming back.
Yeah.
And that in the future, it's going to be about are you pairing the right top with the jeans at the end of the day? But the look is still the same. So we have gone very far over with open office, to the point where people are addressless. They have no real desk. They just sort of come in. They can sit anywhere they want, and they work in that fashion. But we're seeing more and more that we do need quiet. We do need privacy. We do need a place that is just not in the great wide open of office. And I think it doesn't have to be your own personal or private office, but it definitely wants to be a place where you can be quiet, or whether it's a quiet car, so it's a space designated specifically for quiet work, no phones, no nothing. Food and the relaxation part is still important, but is the foosball table right next to your desk, or are we creating zones for this stuff, this sort of thing? So I think that's where we've gone so far off to one side. Creative and tech firms have really pushed the boundaries and that sort of thing. And of course, we always look up at the Googles and Apples of the world. So a lot of us are just playing catch up because those guys have set the pace. But I think we are coming back. You're right. I think the pendulum is moving back in a way where it's getting to be a little too much we time, as I'm calling it, because I think millennials are like, oh, let's be collaborative. We can work anywhere as long as we have this couch, a beanbag, and a desk and a whiteboard. We're good. But I think nowadays we are trending towards, and we will continue to trend towards, the sense of me time. And that me time, like I said earlier, is about that self-actualization, the esteem. How do I feel as a person working where I work?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when I hear you talking about that, because like I've got in my office several generations, and I have a couple of brokers who been in business for a long time who are in open space, these pods, and they really like it, and they do not want a private office, but yet I've got some guys that have been just a year or two out of UGA, real estate grads, who for young brokers, and they're like, Michael, I want that private office. I want that private office. So it's really hard to really put the needs or the desires of these people into two age groups, isn't it?
It's hard. I mean, it's not even age groups. I would say it's more work style, right? So you have to be able to cater toward the different work styles. I work in a way where I just want my headphones on and I can sit in a cube and I'm good. And that's how I work. But if I'm right next to the most super chatty person in the universe and I have no flexibility to move or go anywhere else, then it becomes really sort of tough. So everybody works different. Everyone is productive in their own way. Everyone has their own sense of what's important to them in their day to day. And so you want to be able to have the space that creates that flexibility that allows them to do that. So yeah, it's not, he's right. Maybe it's not about private office, but it is about being able to isolate yourself because you need to be productive for a period of time.
What are some tips for a landlord if, in these office buildings today, we're really keying in on those common areas like you mentioned before, like, for example, the lobby. And I go into some of these buildings and lobbies are kind of okay. They're kind of cookie cutter. They're nice, but there's nothing that kind of jumps out. And occasionally I go in one where you go, wow, this is really cool. I feel really good in this space. How do you do that? How do you create that?
Well, there's a lot of factors in what you just said, and the last thing you said is actually important. You want to be able to feel good in that space. You're there 10, 12 hours a day at times or more if you're working, and you want to feel good. And the lobbies of late in the past decade have become like the third space for a building. So if your office is too small or, it doesn't look or feel like the way you want to work, then you have a third space to go. So building owners are spending a fair amount of time and money to be able to, reposition their lobbies to make it a third space. So that's one, to kind of create a good feeling for where you are. And then the question is, what's in there? So if a building owner can't afford to do it or may not, spend the time or money rather to, to redo their lobby or create those amenities, if you have access to that sort of thing, nowadays people are giving gift cards for like Uber, or they're giving other sort of concierge level amenities or offerings. If you can do that in a different way, it's about creating a sense of convenience. And those convenience that are things that matter to you are important. And then you respect that because it kind of keeps you at ease, as an employee. Like you don't have to stress over every little thing that either the building owner does it as from a building management perspective, or your employer does it in that way. Yeah. And then the last thing you said, which is important, is that we are seeing now a big blurring of lines between where you live and where you work, and even that sense of hospitality hotel life. So office buildings look like your home, or they look like a cool boutique hotel. And, so those are the things that actually make you feel comfortable. As long as you feel good in where you work, you tend to be more productive.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. And if I have a concierge downstairs in the lobby that can help me with, booking a place for lunch or dinner, or that's becoming more like a hotel, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it is about convenience, because the expectation on your employee is increasing more and more. Because if they're firmly rooted and they believe in the mission that they're working towards, whether it's inventing the next best widget, or the best data analytics, or designing the best building, you want to make sure, because they're so into it, that the spaces that they're in and doing it are supportive of that.
Yeah. Well, what tip would you leave us for a landlord who owns a building with some age on it, and maybe he's looking to really improve that building and that space and that experience?
Well, hire a good architect.
There you go.
I'll go a long way.
Yeah.
But look, it's one of these things, and a lot of building owners know change is inevitable. That's the one thing we can always rely on. And the success for building owners and leadership is trying to understand what's important. They have to be able to, from all the same, weed out the things that are working and why. And brokers and building managers will give you the good stories and the horror stories as to why things work and don't work, but you want to be really smart about what it is. But ultimately, it's about creating value for their building. So their building, for whatever they bought it for, has got to do better as a long-term portfolio hold or a sell. So creating that value and upholding and prioritizing the things that people find important are what's going to hold the value in the building, not just checking these boxes. So.
Yeah, and finding out what the people like, that's interesting because obviously we want to do that, but how do you go about it? Do you survey your existing tenants? Do you survey the tenant reps who are potentially putting your building on the tenants list or not? Right?
Yeah. Us, even though we're in a creative, company, being architects or designers or engineers, et cetera, we're very data driven. We do post-occupancy studies. We have a lot of data. We have a lot of information that says historically, not only here's how things are trending, here's what's worked. And, hopefully you're talking to some folks that can say, well, here's what we can predict based on X, Y, and Z. And that's going to be an important piece. There's a lot of great research out there. Data analytics is king right now, so you can get a lot of good data out there in research. And risk. Risk is going to be important, because if you're doing the same, you're not going to be set apart. So the building owners are going to have to take some degree of risk.
Yeah. Well, I like the thought that you brought up with the concierge. I think the level of service is something that you can always remember, and even if the building is not so nice, if you're greeted warmly when you come in and you're directed to, hey, where a certain tenant is, or where a certain service is, or when I come in my building, the security folks, they know who I am, they greet me warmly, and I think that can go a long way, even if you have an older building. It's like, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, think of every vacation you've gone on where they have a concierge desk, and when they help you out and they plan your dinner and you have a great night, and you're like, yeah, I'm so glad that person recommended X, Y, or Z. And that's that connection that everybody wants. And I think that's how you can develop it, whether it's concierge level or it's some sort of like tenant, what do you call it, cruise director type person that can really create activities within the building.
Right. Yeah. Well, good information, Harold. Thanks for joining us. Great. Good information as usual.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Michael.
And if you like more information, check them out at CBT Architects. And stay with us. We'll have more on the office sector, on tenant strategies and landlord strategies. Stay with us. I'm Michael Bull. This is America's Commercial Real Estate Show.
America's Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Bull Realty. For customized asset and occupancy solutions, visit bullrealty.com. Commercial Agent Success Strategies. Incredible training for commercial agents. Visit commercialagentsuccess.com.